Robert Halfon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful. And may I congratulate my honourable friend for Enfield, who I've known near to 30 years as a good friend, and his values have remained the same over these many years, and I thank him for this debate. I welcome what we are discussing today because I think we need to move the discussion away from assisted dying to that of quality of life. And I have come to this issue not by accident, but by my involvement with my local hospice, St Clare's, which is one of the most wonderful community organisations that I have ever had the privilege to be involved in, both as a candidate for many years in Harlow and also as MP. And they are so dedicated to quality of life and to care. It has taught me much about the important role that palliative care has and how we must support it. And I just want to raise three brief points today. The first is equity of funding. Now, it's our hospice in Harlow, the St Clare's Hospice, gets 24% of its funding from the local PCT. Yet other nearby hospices from other PCTs get around 40%. Farley, 40%, St Francis, around 40%. Now, I welcome that 40%. I'm not deriding that, but it is important that there is much more equity of funding. Now, there are also a cliff edge issue, as 70% of charitable hospices have agreements that last with their local PCT for just 1 year. And I think we need to give them much more longer-term agreements so that they are able to plan ahead. Now, secondly, we often talk about the big society, but the hospice movement was around before we ever talked about the big society. And they have been pioneers of the big society for many, many years. There are 157 charitable hospices in the United Kingdom which receive the bulk of their funding from private and community sources. Just let me go on for a moment. More than 100,000 people now donate their time to local hospices. St Clare's Hospice that I've mentioned has 500 volunteers, and I've been pleased to work there as a receptionist on one occasion. Now, given what the government is trying to accomplish in many parts of the public sector, hospices deserve much more recognition for their role as part of the big society, and because they are models of how charitable institutions can raise extra funds, invest in services and train the community without it simply coming from higher taxes. I give way briefly to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful to the honourable member and giving way, and I support everything that's been said so far in terms of doing what we can to preserve life. Linked to the issue of funding and the issue about community and the voluntary sector, in Medway we have the Wisdom Hospice, where £539,000 annually is raised by the voluntary and charitable sector. Isn't that a great example of how communities want to preserve and support palliative care?
And my honourable friend makes a good point and is exactly right, and his constituency is lucky to have him serving them so well. I want to also highlight briefly the bereavement counselling service. Now, my hospice, St Clare's, offers a bereavement counselling service for families, and around 40% of families who come into St Clare's get the bereavement counselling. Now, that is a huge extra cost that they don't have to offer, but offer as an extra service. Now, it's worth noting that hospices get little recognition for their work on bereavement care, and a UK study has shown that bereavement care is often overlooked. In 2010, more than half of hospital maternity units still lacked a dedicated bereavement support, leading to families to turn to their local hospice. And in 2007, a survey from Oxford University looked at bereavement care in 10 Mary Curie hospices around the country and showed that there were some great services, but also in other areas it was very patchy or non-existent. And so that's why hospices like St Clare, who go above and beyond the call of duty in their services they offer for bereavement, deserve recognition and extra financial support. Now, in conclusion, Mr Chairman, I just want to briefly comment on my honourable friend for Hexham's comments, although he's no longer in his place, and I have huge respect for him. But he talked about choice in death, but the problem with assisted dying and the move towards euthanasia is that in fact, people will be pressurised into making choices. And that is why I'm passionately against any moves towards assisted dying. We need, as I said in my opening remarks,
Flello.
Thank you, Sir Roger. And I'm most grateful to the Honourable Member for giving way, and I'm listening very carefully to his speech, and I congratulate the Honourable Member for calling today's debate. But on that point, is not also part of the problem that if this House eventually, sadly, legislates in favour of assisted dying, what that would do would normalise a situation. And that would mean that people who are vulnerable, families who are in desperate straits, would think that's normality, we'll go down that route. That's a very dangerous route, would you not agree?
I agree so passionately with my honourable friend that we will be making a hugely dangerous step if we go down the road of assisted dying, because as a society, we devalue human life, whether it's in fiction, with computer games or on television, or whether it is in real life. And I often wonder whether Howard Shipman would have got away with what he did by just killing one patient after another if, as a society, we hadn't devalued human life in such a way. And we need to move away from this in a big way and move back towards dignity for the dying and a strong support for palliative care.
Lynn Davis.